Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our opening story on why you shouldn't come to a restaurant interview and not pay the bill. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. And our first story. My manager is hardcore about dining and dashing. So the other day, my strict manager was in a particularly good mood and told us this story, and I thought it belonged here. A week or two ago, it was dinner time on a Friday, so like plenty of other restaurants, we were really busy with a long wait. A former employee from a different location comes in to apply for a job. Because of how busy we are, the manager asked the cashier for basic information and her resume so he can look her up in our system. He finds out that she can't be rehired per company policy, so he has the cashier tell her that the restaurant is too busy for a manager to interview her. Despite not getting an interview, the girl and her friend decide to eat dinner and not pay. My manager looks over the tapes and sees the girl applying for the job walk around through the store section of our restaurant, go to the bathroom, and leave. A few minutes later, her friend does the same thing. Luckily, he has all of her personal information on her resume that she left, as well as information on her car from security cameras. What does my manager do? He calls her back up and apologizes for being so busy. Maybe she could come back in for an interview with him. She wants to know when, so my boss lies and says that he's leaving on vacation for a few weeks, and it would be best if she came back in as soon as possible. An hour later, he sees her car pull into the parking lot and calls the police. He sits down with her and conducts an interview like any other. He excuses himself to go get some availability paperwork and comes back with the receipts and confronts her about not paying. She immediately starts freaking out, saying her friend told her she would pay for her meal and talking about how her friend was always stealing from her and she shouldn't trust her friend anymore. She offers to pay for her meal but says she won't pay for her friend's. My manager tells her that she'll pay for both or he'll bring in the police that he's already called. She pays for both meals and leaves a nice $5 or $6 tip. Then she asks my manager, "Wait, you didn't just bring me in here to have me pay, did you?" My manager tells her, of course not, but that she should come in tomorrow and ask for Teresa, our general manager, so she can interview her. Sure enough, she comes in the next day and asks for our GM. Teresa tells her that not only will she never work at one of our restaurants again, she's not welcome back at our location. A lot to go through for a dine and dash, but still amusing if you ask me. And our second story. Want me to keep pouring wine? Okay then. So while I was going through college, I worked at this fancy upscale restaurant. You know, the type with the specially folded napkins and 3 knives and 3 forks and 2 dessert spoons and lots of money for small portions? I usually served, but every now and then I would work behind the bar on slow nights or for special events. Now we have a fairly extensive wine menu with both wines from the region and all over the world, and because we're right next to a college with a well-known sommelier program, we get a lot of them coming in, trying our wines and pairing them with their food. Most of them were good people, students who really wanted to sample wines and try to understand why they go well with specific meals, and I really enjoyed talking to them. They had good info that helped me be a better server/bartender, and I could help them understand why some wines went better with some meals over others. We always charged students who wanted a sample of a 3-ounce glass, but at a reduced price so they could still sample, but we were not giving away a ton of free wine to students. They had to, of course, show ID and that they were part of the sommelier program to get the discount. One day we had this older woman come in, probably around 60 or so, for dinner. I'd seen her a few times and she could give servers a hard time, but generally wasn't too bad. Well, this day she decided she wanted to try a bunch of the wines because she is a sommelier. She brought it up a few times that evening as she kept coming back to the bar to sample different wines before returning to her seat to order with her server. She was always very snotty when she said it like she was so much better than you for being a sommelier. She was especially rude that evening to her server, wouldn't look her in the eye, snapped at her to get her attention, and asked me multiple times when trying a wine she did not like, "Why would you serve me that? It's awful. Take it off your menu now." Like it was my fault she picked a wine she didn't like. I was to tell her that we charge a 3-ounce glass for samples, however, at a reduced price for sommeliers. She would just say, "It's fine," and wave me off every time, telling me to just keep pouring her wine. Okay, lady. Anyways, the end of her meal comes and she gets her bill and immediately gets up and comes to me with fire in her eyes. She yells at me, "What is the meaning of this? Why have I been charged 14 separate times for a 3-ounce glass of wine?" I tried to calmly explain to her that we charge for sampling wine, but at a reduced price for sommeliers. Now, she wasn't a student and couldn't prove to me right then that she was one, but I didn't want to anger this woman anymore, and my manager's pretty good about giving us discounts like that for large orders to keep customers coming back, etc. This, however, did not make her happy, and she demanded to speak to my manager. So I went to get her. The manager comes over, and I explain the situation, and the lady shows my manager the bill. I want all that to be zero. I come here often and refuse to be treated like some common wino. My manager takes a moment and says, lady's name, "I've never had a sommelier in here order as much wine as you have. You cannot get drunk here for free." The shock on that woman's face is something I will always remember. We ended up charging her full price. Great day. And our last story. Don't pay me for half a year? Okay, enjoy being $20,000 in debt and being out of a job. Okay, so I had this really nice lady as a boss in a sales job. I'm in a different job now. She was the sweetest soul ever, would always get us coffee when we got to work. She had a heart of pure gold, but that wasn't enough for the leech of a corporation the business I used to work at was. They were the most scummy people on earth. Just imagine Mr. Krabs' money obsession on steroids. Half of my workforce got fired due to budget cuts. Thankfully not me, because I was a pretty hard worker. But then I got a new boss, and oh boy, was he a nightmare. He made us get to work an hour earlier so we could get ahead of our schedule. He also made us stay behind late for the same reason. I barely ever got any free time to myself because I was rotting in a tomb that my new boss called an office. To be honest, he made me want to quit, and also made me wonder, what in the hell am I doing here? I could be outside. But instead, I sat in front of a monitor, making some sales. What has my life become? He made me hate my life. Then they got really scummy. They got rid of another half of our workforce again because of their budget cuts. They fired my best friend, who I made a pact with to always have the same job as her. She got a job as a cashier because nobody was hiring. I couldn't leave my job, and I felt trapped. But can I tell you what was really scummy? Because there was only 25% of our workforce left, they were making me do 2 different jobs and an extra 3 hours because they couldn't afford to keep their precious workers in the industry. My boss started to treat me like crap with a cherry on top and make sexist jokes. The effing boss also had the nerve not to pay me for 6 months. He came up with excuses like, "We've had a few setbacks, we'll give it to you next month," and, "Oh, we're sorry, we're all tied up at the moment." I had rent to pay, gee-dammit. I got paid roughly $3,300 a month, but after that, I had to rely on my parents to help me pay my rent, buy my food, get transport through trains, etc. This isn't directed towards the boss, but towards the entire GD company. I'm not naming any names, but they are the worst corporation ever. So I was slaving away at my job again, and my boss told me they were firing me because I was lacking schedule completion or whatever. I was PO'd. I almost killed the guy. It was so overwhelming and infuriating. Now for the revenge. I had no idea why I didn't do this before, but I'd gotten in contact with a lawyer. He understood it all and was in my favor, and he agreed to take on the case. We had gathered every sample of evidence on how I was unpaid for the past 6 months and had to live off my parents. It was horrible. It felt like I was stealing from them. We were certain we were going to win the court case. We had every bit of evidence to get my money back. Court trial day. I was not suing my crappy boss, but the CEO of the company for around $20,000. The CEO tried to bribe the judge with $500, but it didn't work. The judge apparently passed it off as, "Sure, dude, I'll definitely be in your favor." My lawyer is friends with the judge, surprisingly enough, and the judge told him after the trial case. Okay, so the judge starts talking, yada, yada, yada. Then he asked the CEO to give evidence that they have paid me. They had none. They didn't even think about forging documents. The judge was displeased and went on to me and my lawyer. The judge told me to show evidence, and I did. I whipped out tens of pages of documents with unpaid bills, and also said that the company has a reputation for killing its workforce. The judge had all the evidence he needed, and it went in my favor. This went over the local news, and I got $20,000 in return. Thanks so much, CEO. I really appreciate it. I bought a used car and paid off the next few months of my rent. All thanks to the CEO. The CEO's company died and went out of business because clients heard about my court case and they were disgusted that a company would do that. The company went out of business because nobody would buy from them and they had a bad reputation in general. I, however, got my PhD in English and I'm now an author for a book series. I can't say which because I'm not allowed to advertise. RIP in chat. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.